Hello everybody, my name is Tactical Twinkie and I am a VTuber and I'm going to be teaching you introductory Japanese. I will say my source books are the Genki 1 elementary textbooks. These are the orange cover. But let's hop right in, buckle up, and get ready to learn something. So, table of contents, I'm going to link all the timestamps for all of these subjects down in the description. So if there's anything that's giving you a little bit extra trouble that you could use one more glance over, check down there and I will timestamp it for you. Other than that, let's have a great time. Let's move forward. So I'm going to give you an introduction to Japanese as a language. I know I may be blocking some of the words here, but don't worry, anything that needs to be read, I will read. So Japanese is a language heavily based on context. This means that you may have two words that have the same hiragana, but they mean two different things, and that meaning changes depending on the context of the conversation you're having. And in Japanese, you'll notice that we don't really use subjects a whole lot because it is so heavily based on context, unlike the English language, where we have subjects very frequently. So, what are the building blocks of Japanese? Japanese consists of 5 main vowel sounds, these never change, and 14 main consonant sounds. This is including our diacritical marks. So we have about 9 main consonant sounds without diacritical marks. For native words, we use hiragana, and for foreign words, we use katakana. Don't worry, I know I'm blocking the katakana chart, but we will get to katakana in the next lesson. For now, we are going to worry about hiragana and Japanese greetings. That way we can break it up and you don't have to worry about memorizing too many alphabets at once and getting things mixed up. So let's go. Hiragana, the building blocks of Japanese. So hiragana will be used for most of our early stage sentence building. Later down the road, we'll start running into kanji, and I believe in the next lesson we will start running into a little bit of katakana as well. But anyways, here is your hiragana chart. I'm going to go through each of these with you, starting with our 5 main vowels. A, I, U, E, O. This is A, I, U, E, O. So now we're going to move over to our Ks. Again, these are our main 9 consonants. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Ko. My bad. And you will see that we will run into a couple of exceptions here throughout the chart. So I will pause and I will let you know when we have an exception. It just came to mind because we do have one coming up in the next row here. So we have sa, she. This is pronounced she. Just like our common pronoun she, it is pronounced she, not si. Su, se, so. So we also have su here. Su is more of a grammatical exception. And what I mean by that is once we start getting into sentence building and even into some of our greetings, you'll start noticing that I don't pronounce the U when it comes to things like mas, des. We drop the U in those scenarios, in those typical sentence endings. And I believe there are also some words where the U will get dropped in su, so you end up with a s instead of su. Moving on, we went through se, so, and now we're moving over to our T. Our T section has 2 exceptions. So we have ta, chi, so this is chi, not T. Chi, tsu, so this is going to be pronounced T-S-U, tsu. Then we have te, to. Moving over to our N's, no exceptions here. Na, ni, nu, ne, no. So H has another one of those grammatical exceptions. So we have ha here, right? But ha is often switched to wa, sometimes in some of our words and our sentences. Once we start getting into sentence building, you'll see that ha character being swapped for wa a lot. So when we build sentences, we aren't going to use this wa, but this will switch to wa for us. And we will see this in, again, some of our greetings. So ha or wa, he, this one is pronounced fu, so like an F sound. Fu, ha, he, fu, he, ho. Now moving over to our M's. Ma, mi, mu, me, mo. Now to our Y's. There's only 3 here, so very simple. Ya, you, and yo. And we will see these more once we get to contracted sounds. We will have small versions of these. So our next one is our R category. We want this to be more of a soft R, pronounced almost like a D or an L. We don't really want this to be a super enunciated R when we pronounce it. Ra, ri, ru, re, ro. See how that sounds a little bit different than the R's that we usually pronounce in the English language. Our next one, there's only 2 here on this chart. I know on my stroke order chart there are 2 extra ones, we and we, but I have personally not run into them. If we do, we will go back over them, but for now, we are only going to stick to wa and o. O is another exception here. We don't pronounce it wo. We pronounce it o. Wa is fine on its own. And finally, over here, all by itself is n. Pronounced like our normal N sound, n. This does not have a vowel follow it. It is its own syllable. So, why don't we try writing the characters? I'm going to take a pause between each character, and you can take that time to pause the video and try writing them yourself. So let's start over with our first column here. Our base vowels, a, I, U, E, O. So a starts with this horizontal line, then we have a vertical one with a slight curve coming through it, and then we start up here, making sure to leave our little tail, come down, and around for an oval-like shape. Again, that's a horizontal line, a vertical one, leaving our tail up here, coming down with a slight curve, leaving a tail here, going down and around, creating that oval shape. All right, let's move forward to E. So E is a very simple one here. We start with this line on the left, come down with the curve, make sure it's curved. Then we come up with a more hook-like shape. We want this to be kind of like a check mark more than this curved shape here. You see like how it's a little bit more rounded. We want it to be a bit sharper there. And then we take the second line on the right, smaller dash. Make sure these are not the same size. Try this again. Come down into our hook, check mark shape, whatever you want to think of it as, and come over to our right and leave a small dash. All right, moving on to U. U starts with this line across the top. Remember, smaller than the rest of the hiragana. We do not want this to be bigger than it. So small line, and then we make almost like a backwards C, half heart, whatever shape you would like to think of that as, a small curve. Ready? Try that again. Small line up top, and then a big curve again underneath. All right, let's move to E. So E starts with another small dash on top, just like U. So E has a small dash. Then we start with almost what looks like a 7 or a Z. We go straight across in a horizontal line, down in a slanted one, back up, and almost what looks like an N. So we come back, drop it down, and make sure we leave this little tail right here. We don't want to stop it like how we normally stop an N or an H. We bring it all the way through. Try that again. A small dash on top, come across in that kind of 7 shape, up into that H-ish shape, and then bring that tail out. Making sure that these 2 lines at the bottom stay connected. Obviously, this is a beginner course, so if it comes apart, it's not a big deal. Just keep practicing writing and eventually you'll perfect it. So let's move on to O. O starts with this horizontal line right here. Then we have a vertical one that comes down through it. Remember, we don't pick up our pencil. Go all the way around into that oval shape again, but unlike A, you see how we had the vertical line that was a separate stroke from the oval. O is all one stroke. And then we put another little dash right off to the side of our top T, remembering to leave our tails. We don't want these to meet. Like we don't want it to be flat right here. We want to make sure that's sticking up past it. All right, let's move on to ka. So ka starts with almost looks like a half of a square. Make sure that when you do this edge right here, it is not sharp. We want it to be a nice soft edge. Little curve, and then a hook right here, this check mark type shape again. And then we bring a vertical slanted line through that half square. Then we bring a dash across the side too. Let's try that again. Half square, remember to leave our our soft curve, not making it a harsh corner, and then bring back up to that check mark. Vertical line slanted through, and then a dash off to the side. All right, let's move on to ki. Ki starts with a smaller line up top, then a longer line underneath it. Make sure these are parallel. A slanted vertical line that runs through it. Remember, leave this top part on. We want to have this tail up here. Slanted line that runs through it. Come up into another tail, check mark, whatever you want to call it. Let's, instead of what it shows on the chart, you see how it follows all the way through? Instead, let's put a break right here. We don't want anything in this little part right here. This little section. We want that to be open, empty space. And then we pick up the curve down here again. So let's run through that one more time. Shorter line up top, longer line on bottom, parallel, vertical line that comes through at a slant, come up with a little tail, stop here, lift your pen, whatever, you could follow the motion if you still want to, lift your pen, and then we do the swoop underneath, okay? This is how it would look typed, but written, we want to have that break there. All right, let's move on to ku. So ku just looks like a less than sign. It's a little more open than usual. Ready? Down, down again. I'm only going to go through that once because it's not that difficult of a hiragana. I'm sure you can get it. I believe in you. All right, let's move on to ke. So ke starts with a little line on the left. We want to make this about the same size as the other one. I know in this visual representation it is not, but it needs to be the same size on the left as it is on the right. Sorry, I'm adjusting how I'm sitting. So, as I was saying, bring that line down, slightly curved. Then we do that little check mark, hook, tail, whatever you want to call it. Then we have another horizontal line, and then another line, a vertical, that comes through and curves off at the bottom towards the left, like a little J shape. One more time. Curved vertical line, tail, horizontal line, and then curved kind of J shape facing the left. All right, let's move on to ko. So ko has this top line, and this should have a tail too. You don't want this to be flat. So you do this line, small tail, and then we proceed to our bottom swoop. One more time. Line, small tail, swoop. All right, let's move on to sa. Sa is going to be like ki. We want to have a break here. We don't want it to be all the way connected like this chart. So let's try this. Horizontal line, slanted line through it, bring it up with the tail, stop here, leave this empty, then we go here, right? And bring down this bottom swoop. Let's try that again. Horizontal line, vertical line through, tail, break, and swoop. All right, let's move on to she. She just basically looks like a J shape. We come down all one stroke and swoop back out. Down and swoop. All right, let's move on to su. Su has a horizontal line. Then we start with the vertical one that goes through it, making sure to leave our tail. Comes down, makes a loop-de-loop, little circle, and then curves off to the left. Just like our K, but it comes down into a loop and then curves off to the left. All right, let's try se. So se has a horizontal line. Then we do this smaller line. Make sure this is shorter than the other one. It comes down into a hook coming out to the left. And then we have an L shape, making sure to have that soft curve again. Oops, I accidentally clicked. Making sure to have that soft curve again. And it curves out, remember, to the right, like an L shape. We want them to be facing kind of like towards each other, if you will. Let's try that again. Horizontal line. Come down with the vertical one. Hook out to the left, then an L shape to the right. Remember, the L shape should go out and underneath our initial hook. Alright, let's move on to so. So is all one stroke here, so follow with me. This one might take a little bit more time. Start making like a Z, but once we get to that last line, we go out a little bit more to the left, then back over to the right, and then we make this circle, kind of like this half circle shape. Ready? Here we go. One more time. Z, but instead of going back towards the rest of the Z, we go out just a little to the left, back towards the right, and then into our circle. I'm sorry I keep clicking it. My bad. Alright. Let's move over to ta. So ta starts with this little line right here, this horizontal line. Then we have a slanted vertical one that comes through it. And this is just basically a mini call underneath this little T. So we start with our horizontal line. Make sure to leave a little tail here. Then our swoop. Let's try that again. Horizontal line, slanted vertical line, and mini call. So we do the straight line, small tail, and then our swoop. Alright. Let's move on to chi. So we have this horizontal line here, a vertical one that comes through it. Make sure to leave these corners. I know with a 5 you normally don't, but this isn't a 5, this is chi. So leave these, come down, then back around into, again, like the bottom of a 5, little oval. Let's try that again. Horizontal line, vertical line that comes through it, making sure to leave our tails, and then that 5 shape. Alright, let's move on to tsu. Tsu is all in motion, pretty simple. You want to take it from the left side, go around into a horseshoe, and end it short on that bottom side. Remember, we want the top half to be longer than the bottom. Let's try that again. Remember, left side up to the right to a horseshoe, and then the bottom line is shorter than our top. Alright, let's move on to te. So te is just a straight line, and then we bring a curve down out of the bottom. Straight line, bring a curve all down out of the bottom. All one motion, don't lift your pen. Our next one is to. So to starts with this vertical line on top of this little, almost like a mirrored tsu. So remember, vertical line, tsu, but mirrored, facing the other way. And we need to make sure that unlike tsu, the top and the bottom line are equidistant. They don't, one is not longer than the other. Alright, let's move on to na. So na starts with this little line right here. This one may be a little harder because it's a little bit more strokes, but we got this. So we start with this horizontal line, then we have a slanted vertical one that comes through it. Then we do this little dash out to the side of our T, and then we come down with this last stroke into a loop. Let's try that again. Horizontal line, slanted vertical line, small dash, comes down into a loop. Alright, let's move on to ni. So ni starts with, like how we started ke, we have this line that comes down to the side, slightly curved. Our tail comes up. Then we start making basically a call again. So straight out, horizontal line, small tail here. I know it doesn't show it on the chart, but you want a small tail. And then a swoop underneath. Ready? Vertical line, hook, horizontal with the small tail, swoop. All right, let's move on to new. So new is a little harder. My class, my Discord class, struggled a bit with this one. So if you struggle, don't worry. Take as much time as you need when you pause the video to try this, or rewind it as many times as you need. So let's start. We're gonna start by making almost like a V shape. So we start here with the left side of the V coming down, making sure to leave this little tail out. You wanna be able to see this on the other side. So make sure you come all the way down here. Then with our next line of the V, the right side, we come down through that little intersection, remembering to leave a little off the end, little tail. Then we don't pick up our pen, we keep going up and around into that oval shape, and then we make another smaller oval. Let's try that again. Ready? Left side of the V, leaving our little tail out with the right side of the V, coming around and up, and then into our second oval. All right, let's move on to ne. So ne starts with this straight line right here, this vertical line. Then the rest of this is all one motion. So we start out here to the left. We come across. Make sure that you are crossing this line completely. You want this little corner to stick out. Come down through the line again. And then up into what would look like an N shape almost. And then another little loop, just like we did with nu. Let's try that again. Ready? Vertical line. Then a horizontal one, remembering, kind of making our Z shape. Coming all the way through the line so we can see that point. Coming back through the line. And then up again into that N shape and ending with a little loop. Alright, let's move on to no. So no is all one motion. We start with the inside part. You see right here, right where my mouse is. We go down and around, creating like a circle. Almost like how you kind of write an @ sign. You start here at the top, come down and around, creating no. Alright, let's move on to ma. So ma starts with one top line, longer than the bottom, and then a shorter line underneath. And then our last stroke, remember, you want to have this little tail up top. Coming down, and then in that loop again. One more time. Longer line up top, smaller line on bottom, leaving our tail, come down into a swoop. Into like a circle, a loop, I guess. Alright, moving on to me. So me is one of my favorites to write, honestly. We start here, start up top, then we come across like we're almost like we're making a 7 down, but instead of finishing that 7 right there, we go through this loop and we take the line all the way through, right? We go line, extends out a little bit, and then we add this second line through it. Alright, let's move on to mu. So mu starts with this horizontal line right here. Then we go down with this vertical one, remembering to leave our tail. Come down, do another loop-de-loop, but instead of curving off to the left like we saw in Su, we curve off to the right into more of like a fishing hook type shape. And then we add this little dash off to the side. Let's try that again. Horizontal line. Then we take the vertical one down, loop-de-loop out to the left, but then when it comes out, it curves to the right. And then we add the dash off to the side. Remember, it's right there by that kind of T shape and right above our hook. Alright, let's move on to me. So me, as you can see, is a lot like nu. And you may get these confused for the first little while, but it is okay. Alright, ready? So we're going to take, remember, that left side line, like a V, leaving our little tail out when we get the second line going. We come through, making that V shape, then out and around in the oval, but we stop here. No loop, remember. Unlike nu, where there is a loop, me has no loop. So let's try that again. Left side line, slanted. Then we bring the second line through, making sure to leave our tail. And then we go out and around into a circle. Leaving, remember, make sure to leave this gap open. I know I'm saying circle, but you need to make sure that gap is open. Now let's move on to mo. So mo starts with the J shape first. So you see how we have mu? It's kind of like mu, but it has a little bit of a softer curve to it. So we go down and up into that hook. Then we do 2 horizontal lines parallel to each other, and that's mo. Remember, leave this tail out. Down into a hook, 2 lines, and there's mo. Now we're going to move on to our easy one, ya, you, yo. So we're going to start with ya. Ya starts with almost like the top shape of a P. You go out and then make that kind of horseshoe back in. Our second line is this little short one, almost like an antenna, comes off to the right side. And then we have a slanted vertical line that comes through it to make ya. And then, so let's try that again. Top part of the P, right? Like a horseshoe. Then we have the small line, first antenna, and then a vertical slanted line. Alright, let's move on to U. So U looks kind of like a fish, if you've noticed that before, or if you're just now noticing it. My students say it looks like a fish, and I agree. So we're going to start here on the left side, come down, then back up to make that like oval circle shape to make the fish's body, and then we bring the vertical line through it. Try that again. Start on the left, come down with the vertical line, then we go out to make that kind of oval shape, and then we bring a vertical line through that oval. Alright, let's go to yo. So yo starts with this short line that comes out to the side, then we bring it down, loop, and come out. Small line, bring it down, loop, and out. And make sure that when you have this first line, it does not have a little tail. It cuts off when it intersects with the main line right here. Alright, let's move on to the R's. So ra starts with this small line up top. It's like a 5 without a corner. So small line, and we come down with a vertical line and out with our little oval shape. Let's try that again. Dash on top, vertical, and then out to an oval. Alright, let's move on to ri. So ri, we have to make sure that our left line is smaller than our right one. So we come down, create a small little hook, and then the right side, we go down into this kind of J shape, but it comes out to the left. Remember, it curves to the left, and it comes below our original line. So let's do that again. Line on the left side, hook, just make sure that's a shorter line, longer line with a J shape going underneath the left line. But not, you don't want it to go fully underneath, you just want it to curve slightly underneath. Alright, let's move on to ru. So ru starts like a 3. It looks a lot like a Roman 3. Like, you know, is that Roman? No, it's not. That's Roman numerals. It looks a lot like the 3s that we have in the English language. So don't mind me, brain not working. Oopsies. Anyways, so it looks a lot like a 3. So we start up top, bring it down, and come back out and around into this little circle that meets in the bottom of the 3. I know you're thinking like, oh, this guy loses brain cells. Why should he be teaching Japanese? Promise. I only lose brain cells sometimes because I blank out. But it's okay. Anyways, back to ru. So we start at the top, come down making that 7 shape, and then we want to make sure that this little thing, this little tail right here, comes out a bit further than you normally would on a 3. It needs to come out a little bit. And then we go back for that oval and finishing it with our last little loop in here. Alright, let's move on to re. So re has this vertical line. Remember, it looks a lot like ne. But instead of curving back in on itself to create a loop, it goes out and creates more of like I said, like a J shape, a hook, whatever. So you start with this vertical line. Then we start making that Z shape again, remembering to bring our corner out past the line so we can see it. Back through the line again, out into that end shape, but instead of swirling back in, we we swoop out. Vertical line, Z shape following through the line on, you know, we go through, then we go back through again, out into that end shape and swoop out. Alright, let's go to ro. So ro looks a lot like ru, but ru has this little circle and ro does not. So ro, we start the same way. Come across, and bring down that almost like 7 shape, going out a little bit farther than would seem normal. And we come back with that kind of oval. One more time. Making that 7 type shape, going out to the right, down, and then into that ovals type shape. Remembering, we don't connect these ovals. I'm just saying they're more like incomplete oval shapes. Alright, so like I said, we aren't going to worry about we or we. We're going to worry about wa and o. So let's start with wa. Wa starts with a vertical line, just like re. Ooh, I rolled my R there. Just like re and ne. Wa starts with this vertical line, then comes out and across, back through the line and down, and then out into that incomplete oval shape again. Ready? Vertical line, Z, making sure we go through the line twice, and then out into that oval shape, and you have wa. Alright, let's move on to wo. So wo, I know it looks complicated, but I promise it's not. So we start with this horizontal line first, right? And then we come down with a slanted vertical line. And we almost start making a 5, but we stop. We don't want to start curving back in. We just want to bring it out and then stop. And then we do what almost looks like to through the bottom. That little to shape. One more time. Horizontal line. Slanted vertical line through it. Come up into that hump. Almost like a 5, but we stop before we curve back in. And then that horseshoe shape at the bottom, making sure that you still see that little tail poke through from the top part of o. Alright, let's move on to n. So n is all one stroke, easy. Slanted line, slanted vertical line, comes back up into almost like an H shape, and then comes down and swoops back out. One more time. Come down with a slanted vertical line, almost like an H shape, and then we swoop back out. Looks like a fancy H, if you will. So, now that you've done and practiced writing the hiragana, let's move forward. So the next thing that we're going to go over is hiragana with diacritical marks. So I'm not going to sit there and have us do writing practice for this. If you would like to, you can practice it in your own time. As you can see, it is only hiragana with slight modifications that change the sound of the consonant in use. We can see each character used here is just one of our base hiragana with these little quotation marks or this little degree sign. So this little quotation mark type thing, a diacritical mark, both of these are diacritical marks, will just change the sound of our consonant, as I mentioned before. So this, as we can see, our base hiragana is ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. But when we add this diacritical, we get the G sound. So ga, gi, gu, ge, go. Remember that we also have exceptions still. So with our typical exceptions, you will see that these change as well. This is the only one of our exceptions, like from our base chart, that doesn't change. So when we move over to the Z's, we have za. This switches to G, like J-I, G. Remember that. Zu, ze, zo. Then we have the T's. This is because we know this is our base S's. This is our base T's. So like ta, chi, tu, te, to. We have da, as you can see, switches to a D sound with a diacritical. Da. This turns into G as well. Just like this. J-I, G. This one is more common as we will see this being used in time whenever we start telling time. So G, also G. This is zu. So this becomes part of kind of this group. Zu. Z, de, do. So let's go over that again. Da, G, zu, de, do. Remember that these are 2 exceptions. Moving over to our B's. We know this is our base of H's. So ha, he, fu, he, ho. Fu does not change here. It becomes the same as the rest of them. So ba, bi, bu, be, bo. Same with our P sound over here. Pa, pi, pu, pe, po. These do not change. Whew, finally, you know, an exception that doesn't change with the diacritical mark, right? Anyways, proceeding forward. So our next thing that we're going to go over is contracted sounds. So when we combine hiragana with a small ya, you, or yo, they sound much like our own contractions. There, won't, can't, things like that. It's just a contracted sound. So these ya, you, or yo endings can only be added to an e hiragana. So an e ending hiragana, such as ki, ji, shi, ni. You see what I'm getting at here. And when they conjugate, it'll sound like this. So let's go through this chart here. Kya, kyu, kyo, gya, gyu, gyo, xia, shu, sho, jia, ju, jo, cha, chu, cho, nya, nyu, nyo, hya, hyu, hyo, bya, byu, byo, pya, pyu, pyo, mya, myu, myo, rya, ryu, ryo. The next thing that we're going to talk about is double consonants. So double consonants will occur when we add a small tsu between hiragana. So for example, it sounds like a small break when we speak. So kata, kata. That is because we have a double T there. However, double consonants are handled a bit differently when we get to the n. It'll be n plus the hiragana with the initial n sound. For example, sanen, anai. We see that we have n followed by an n sounding hiragana, nen. It has to be followed by an n sounding hiragana, nai. But back to our non-exceptions, back to our regular ones with a small little tsu. Kata. We see that we have a small tsu between ka and ta. What the small tsu does is it elongates the consonant of the hiragana that follows it. So kata, saka, happa, zashi versus kata. This would be if we said it without a pause. Kata means shoulder, but if we say it with the pause and a small tsu, kata. We have to make sure that we pronounce that pause when we have double consonants. Our next thing is long vowels. So when a vowel is placed next to its initial vowel, we get a long vowel. Making sure that we pronounce these long vowels as double the length of the vowel sound. So ka versus ka. Otherwise, we end up with a different word entirely. There's a few exceptions to this pattern, but these will be learned when it comes to vocab. These are just based on individual words. For example, as a double A sound, we see that we have ba followed by an a hiragana. So it becomes oba-san versus oba-san. See, we have G followed by an E vowel, oji-san versus oji-san, which is uncle. And then suji, see how we have an U following the su. Like I said, it elongates your vowels. Make sure that you pronounce them with an elongation. One of our exceptions here, e is usually transcribed by adding an E vowel instead of an E vowel. There's a few words where e is used instead of e. But for example, you see how it says ega. I don't pronounce it eiga. I pronounce it ega. Because that e serves as an elongation of that initial e sound. Ega. But we see here, onesam is followed by an e instead of an e. Onesam. It will just be dependent on the vocab that we go through, and I will make sure that the vocab sheets have time to look through them. And again, all of my stuff is sourced from Genki, so all of this like extra stuff is from the Genki elementary textbook, orange cover. It should be the first one. Now, moving on to our oo sounds. The long oo sound in most cases is transcribed by adding an u vowel instead of an o. It'll be added to an o vowel hiragana, but it's still the u. There are, however, words in which the long vowel is transcribed with an o for historical reasons. But we see here, horitsu. This doesn't change it to horitsu. It becomes horitsu. Typically, if you see a vowel following another, like hiragana, and it has about the same sound, like horitsu or obasan, it's a long vowel elongation. Obviously, there's, different things like nai, like followed by e doesn't make it na. But we'll talk more about it when we get there. So, to, this is just like this for historical reasons. To, it's followed by an o vowel. Alright, so this is some hiragana writing practice. I will pause for a moment. You can screenshot it if you'd like. I think I'm blocking part of it, so I apologize if you can't get the last page here. Here's the next set of pages. Again, all sourced from the Genki textbook. Here's some more writing practice. Alright, so now we're going to move on to greetings and phrases. So some phrases are going to be said on their own versus some you'll notice are call and response, which means that you would say something and then someone would respond to you. But we will practice not only speaking but also writing. I will have small pauses where you can pause the video and you can say the word along with me or, repeat it after me. So this is also the vocab list for all of our greetings. Feel free to screenshot this if you would like. Again, it is in the Genki textbook. So let's start with our first one. Ohayo. Ohayo. See, this is a version of our elongated vowel. Ohayo. This is an informal way of saying good morning. This is what you would say between family, close friends, or younger children. You do not want to use this in your formal settings. Our next one is what we would use in formal settings for good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. Ohayo gozaimasu. Ohayo gozaimasu is a formal version of good morning. You would say this to your strangers, teachers, bosses, and your elders. That's going to be a very common theme, is strangers, bosses, teachers, and elders receive the more formal version of what you are saying. So, ohayo gozaimasu. Our next one is konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. This is another one that can be used in a semi-formal to formal setting. This just means good afternoon. I would only use this for late morning and early evening, so I'm saying around like maybe 11 to 6 o'clock. You don't want to use this after the sun set or in the morning because it would sound wrong. Our next one, this is the one that we do use for the evening. Konbanwa. Konbanwa. Konbanwa means good evening. It is used in nighttime scenarios, semi-formal to formal. Obviously, there are casual ways that we will talk more about later that you can, greet your close friends. Like, this is obviously more for, like, strangers, things like that. You don't really want to go up to your, like, super close friend or your family and be like, konbanwa. Like, it's a bit formal for that. And we'll go over, like I said, slang and stuff later. Stuff that you would use that's a bit more casual. But for now, this is what we will use for every scenario. Alright. sayonara, sayonara. Sayonara is simply a way of saying goodbye, but this is typically used for long-term goodbyes. So if you have a friend that you're going to see tomorrow, you don't really want to tell them sayonara because it has a lot more finality to it. It almost kind of means like, bye, I'm never going to see you again. But for now, we're going to use this in most scenarios as we do not know the, I guess, more brief goodbye versions of this. And we'll get into those later. We'll see those a bit down the road. But don't worry, for now, this is what we will use. Alright, our next one. Oyasumi nasai. Oyasumi nasai. Oyasumi nasai is a way of saying goodnight. But this is also, again, more formal use for strangers, elders, business settings, whatever. Whatever you may have it. So like, I'm leaving work at night. Oyasumi nasai. But typically, if you're just with your family, small children, or close friends, you say oyasumi. That's why nasai is in parentheses there. Oyasumi is a more casual way of saying goodnight. Alright, our next one. This is casual. Do not use this for strangers. Please, if you go to visit Japan, do not use arigato. Arigato. Don't use that for strangers. Arigato is a casual way of saying thank you. Friends, family, younger children. And partners and stuff, of course, obviously. Our next one. This is the formal version of arigato. Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. This is what you use for strangers. Say the worker at a convenience store hands you back your bag or your receipt. Arigato gozaimasu. We don't say arigato. Don't just say that. It is disrespectful. Anyways, but yes, this is a formal way of saying thank you. Strangers, business settings, teachers, elders, etc. So this one, I did not add the romaji. I completely forgot. It slipped my mind, but I'm going to sound this out for you. Sumimasen. Sumimasen. Sumimasen is a way of saying excuse me or I'm sorry for minor inconveniences. You want to use this if you like bumped into someone on the street or you stepped on someone's foot in the subway. You don't want to use this for like, I just spilled your hot coffee all over you. Sumimasen. Like that's when you start apologizing. And we'll go over apologies a bit later too. But yeah, this is sorry for minor inconveniences or to say excuse me, like to get a waiter's attention, sumimasen. But it is typically responded to with ie. And we'll go over ie next. It's our next slide. So this is our next one. Ie. Ie. Ie is a way of saying no or not at all. Like, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Or if I asked you something, it's how you tell me no. That's how you say no. But it can be used to address minor inconveniences that were, you know, addressed by sumimasen. So if someone says sumimasen because they stepped on your foot, that's when you go yeah, or yeah. But this is most often just used as no. Or like if someone's trying to be humble, to go yeah. Say yeah fast. Our next one. This is one of those call-in responses that we were talking about. This is for when you leave the house and are planning to return later. So you're going off to school, you're going shopping, you are going to work. This literally translates to I'll go and come back. Ittekimasu. 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 See how I'm pronouncing that break when we have that small tsu, meaning that we have a double consonant. Remember that we pronounce that break. Alright, our next one. This is the response to ittekimasu. This is when someone is leaving and will return later. It literally translates to please go and come back. Itterashai. Itterashai. That is the response to ittekimasu. Our next one. Tadaima. Tadaima. This is another one of those call and response ones that we talked about, but this is for when you are returning home from when you originally said ittekimasu. This is when you get back. This just means I'm home. That's basically what it translates to. It means I'm home. Our next one, the response. Okaeri nasai. Okaeri nasai. Okaeri nasai. This is the response to tadaima. And this is used when someone has returned home. It just means welcome home. Alright, our next one. You have to say this before every meal, especially if you, like, I mean this more for, like, Japan travelers. If you are going to a restaurant or someone has prepared you a meal, please, 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 please say this before you eat. Itadakimasu. Itadakimasu. Itadakimasu means thank you for the meal. And it is just thanking servers, cooks, whoever cooked for you for preparing your meal for you. Alright, on to the next one. You probably heard that one a lot in anime. Our next one. So this is what we use after every meal. I know I forgot the romaji again, so I will sound it out for you. But this is, again, after every meal, especially if we're getting cooked for or we are going to a restaurant. Gochiso sama deshita. Gochiso sama deshita. Gochiso sama deshita. This is, like I said, especially in restaurants and have someone cooking for you. Just, it's another thank you for the meal, but after you eat. Alright, so this next one is an introductory phrase. This is what we use before we introduce ourselves. Hajimemashite. Hajimemashite. This is, like I said, used as an introduction, but it literally translates to how do you do. You use this before you introduce yourself. So it is that, hajimemashite, and then it follows with your introduction, your name, your age, whatever. And then after you say your name and your age, it is followed by this phrase. Again, I know, I'm sorry, I'm missing the romaji. I'm going to slow it down. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. This is, again, another introductory phrase, but this comes after we say everything about ourselves that we're wanting to say. So, hajimemashite, your greeting, and then yoroshiku onegai shimasu. So let's do some speaking practice. Take this time, pause the video if you want to practice before I read the scenarios. But I have my textbook here, and I'm going to read some made-up scenarios that you can use to practice. And I will, again, pause after each one so you can have the time to really practice it and respond. Alright, so here is our first one. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you see your neighbor, Mr. Yamada. What do you say? Second one. You come to class in the morning. Greet your teacher. Now greet your friends. Next one. On a crowded train, you stepped on someone's foot. What do you say? Next one. You dropped your book and someone picked it up for you. Let's assume this someone is a random person. What do you say? Next, it is 8 o'clock at night. You happen to meet your teacher at the convenience store. What do you say? Number 6. You are watching TV with your host family. It is time to go to sleep. What do you say? Alright, next one. You are leaving home. The one followed by that. You have come back home. This one's, again, very important. You are going to start eating. Alright, now you have finished eating. Take some time to answer those. And if you need to pause and think about it a bit more, go ahead. Or if you need to press play and, go back and listen to the phrases, that is totally fine too. Don't worry about it. Alright, so now here's some writing practice. I don't know if I'm blocking this or not, so I apologize, but here's some textbook pages that you can screenshot if you want to work more on your phrases. Alright, so here's basically a recap of everything that we learned today. Japanese is a contextual language. Japanese is a contextual language. Everything is based on context, meanings of words, what you're talking about, all based on context. There are 5 main vowels and 14 main consonants in Hiragana, including our diacritical marks. There are different settings in certain phrases. There's different settings in certain circumstances where phrases are acceptable. Make sure that you know your formal versus your informal speech. It's going to be very important, especially if you plan on traveling to Japan at any time or speaking to Japanese people. And then make sure, lastly, to do your practices. Go back, speak as much as you need, rewatch this video, and do those writing practices anytime. But for now, that is all that I have for today's lesson. We will come back next week with lesson 2. Until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Be sure to like, subscribe. It was awesome to have you guys around, and I will see you later.